Game one is in the books, and we're about to turn the chapter into game number two. And while it was a pretty nice story for Detonation, it wasn't necessarily perfect. We knew Honey was going to be a challenge, and it really felt like Gang took the brunt of it. So, Nymera, we're going straight to you on this one. You picked this team to win. Do you feel like that they can see a bit more from this bot lane as we go towards our second match?
I think there is a little bit left to be desired from particularly Gang from that first game. The Rakan was pivotal in a couple of those engages, but most of the time was the person getting one shot, getting knocked out of that fight, getting caught as well. So yes, I think that even on his iconic Rakan, there's something to be said about the poise at which that they approach team fights. And part of that, of course, is due to Nemo and Honey playing very, very well. Maybe there's something left there, though, for us to discover. On the other side of it, though, DFM, their star carries really, really showed up. I'm less worried about the individual performances. I'm more worried about what they're trying to achieve in skirmishes, particularly that pick around the red buff. That was where I started to get a little bit worried, because I'm sat there thinking, we've seen this before from DFM, where they don't necessarily think they're going to team fight, and they're not really of the mindset to try and go all in on a skirmish either in that kind of game. Whereas, and then you have players like Hoglet, rather, on the Lee Sin, which can very much punish that kind of indecision. So some patchy moments, but a game one win is still very important for this team.
I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here, though, in regards to that performance. And while, yes, I can't really defend the play around the red buff, that one was a little egregious. But I feel like at the end of the day, too, when you looked at the composition that AXIZ had between a Leona, an Ezreal, a Lee Sin, and a Syndra, someone almost, I feel like, would have had to be a sacrificial lamb. No, like, so when you kind of go with that, expecting at least one person to fall just by the sheer amount of sort of point and click damage, isn't it kind of a good thing that it happened?
Rakan has died to Syndra ult. Syndra ult is down. That's a win.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think there's actually a little bit of truth in that, especially when you are playing stuff like the Aphelios and the Rise, who, if they do get caught out by that pick and blown up, suddenly your team fight looks a lot less clean. So whilst Gang was dying a lot, I think it opened up space for Utapon, and in particular Arya, to actually play a bit more aggressively and go for these sort of flash plays where they're jumping forward, dealing as much damage as they can. And I think that's what sort of sets DFM apart in this matchup, is the multi-lane carry threat, which AXIZ didn't really offer this game.
I know did play okay, though, I will say. That Renekton was actually fairly
I know played okay,
yeah.
but I think we always need to caveat that, where he's not a player that is known for his carry performances. It is like stuff like the Renekton, where you do it well. And there were a couple of team fights where he was able to assassinate Arya and he was able to create space. But even with that, it wasn't actually enough for AXIZ to take the win. And I think that's going to be making DFM feel pretty good, because they saw what they needed to do, and I think they can probably reproduce it fairly cleanly in game two.
You're not the person who I want to be hearing say that right now,
I know. It was a game that gave me hope for AXIZ, but ultimately, I feel like DFM are the sort of team will clean up a little bit of what they're doing.
Yeah, I do kind of feel that, as I say. I mean, again, I'm kind of on the DFM train for the most part, although when we saw that prediction graphic come up before, it did sort of awkwardly say I gave one to AXIZ. I will admit that, and wouldn't mind going back to it. However, at least I'm not the one standing alone. More, though, looking towards game number two. We did touch a little bit more detail what we wanted to see from that bot lane. I do like how we're talking from the talk. I know, not really being known as that big carry performer before, however, did have a strong game one outside of the first 2 or 3 minutes. It does feel like, though, that's just what happens when you go against Detonation and you're playing in the top lane. Do you think this could be Ino's time to shine? Do you want to see a bit more pressure put on the top laner to carry?
I think, in my opinion, Ino did his job completely fine in that last game. You are not expecting the Renekton to carry that kind of game, but the mid-game fights where it came out on Dragon Point basically achieved all you could hope to at that point. There is a point where you just become extra DPM numbers coming in from the Aphelios and from the Rise, and yes, they managed to shut them down a couple of other times. I think for me, it's a little bit more about, again, I kind of said this in the last time, it's more about how they appreciate having a ranged advantage and playing fights out in a different strategic way.
Well, we'll see if they're going to be able to find that new strategy in just a few moments, because it's time to throw it back to our casters for game number two. I'm excited to see if we do get a bit of a comeback or if it's still going to be a Detonation party. Initialize and Swan are still around to be taking this one away.
Thank you so much, Desk. Yes, it is still myself. It is still MassSwan, and we have still got a series on our hands. DFM came out on top in game 1. There were some moments where it looked really clean, moving around the map, getting those Barons, all of that looked good, and then you kind of realize, Hoglet managed to find a few flanks. Ino getting into the back line, making Ino's life hell. Not Ino's life, Gang's life hell when he was jumping in and getting popped. AXIZ didn't exactly lie down and roll of it, did they, Lexi? You're still muted, by the way, buddy. I'm just here by myself.
Thank you, Initialize, for that. I've been talking this whole
You are
time.
usually quiet.
It doesn't matter. It's whatever. Absolutely. This is a team of rookies that came in, and honestly, let's be real here. Their Twitter, their confidence in general, this was a team that I don't think they ever expected to get here. And the fact that they're this far, they want to commit. I saw Megamin on Twitter just before this series. He's like, I'm against a tough opponent, but I've done my practice. I've done my homework. I'm as ready as I'm ever going to be. Let's go. Like, I'm really excited to see like where AXIZ evolve and kind of adapt throughout this series. Even if they're 0-2 down, I'm expecting them to still come out fighting because this team's mental seems to be almost impenetrable. You know, a team that I'd compare them to currently when it comes to the mental game? Mad Lions. They never gave up in LEC, and I don't think AXIZ are going to give up in the LJL.
I kind of agree. There's a scrappiness to this team. They managed to trade back best they can. DFM looking to get some vision in. Hoglet finds a flank, finds a really good team fight. The problem was, of course, that DFM just managed to get some of those really key team fight carries off big team fight picks. Honey's Ezreal was fine. It just wasn't the hyper carry, something like the Aphelios or something like the Jinx, which the desk brought up as well, which was a really big deal.
Initialize, we're in pick and ban phase, so I'm gonna just take you off that point because we gotta start talking about it, and we're getting a repeat draft.
We are, of course, AXIZ on the blue side, so DFM on the red, so we'll see whether some of these bans change up. It already has for AXIZ. They banned the Rise instead of the Aurelia as well. DFM just banning away those hyper carries on red side, saying there will be no Jinx, there will be no Aphelios. I wonder if they ban something like an Ezreal or even something like a Kalista here. Ziggs, yeah, actually that's a really sensible thought. I suspect the Ziggs is not a bad shout out here as a ban, and that's exactly what comes through. Take him straight off that.
So I'm expecting potentially we're going to see DFM go for a Lucian here because this was a first rotation ban for the side of AXIZ. I know also repeating exactly what they did last time. I know rarely gets counterpick for the side of AXIZ. He actually, the reason we compare him so much to Nap, or at least I do, is because Nap has to always blind pick, always never gets counter pick, and then has to just play weak side the whole time. This is because the AXIZ are such a hyper carry bot lane focused team. They want Megamin, they want Honey, they want Hoglet to be comfortable. Nemo is going to get his support pick, and then they're going to decide to where go. DFM, your Lucian's up. They want to go back as well for this Nidalee. We know where they like going with this. That set is there. There's so many champions that DFM can also put in this mid lane to set up for this Nidalee because Arya has a champion Ocean. What's one of his champions that's great for setting up for Nidalee? Silas initialized. That's one of them.
I'm looking at things like Syndra being available as well. Ebbie's Gnar is up on the table as well. Maybe
that's not a setup, but
changing it up a little bit. It's set up if you lock in set. Additional T required to make that particular pun work, but it is locked in. It'll be a repeat of that duo. Of course, the set is still flexible. While we're assuming it's going to Ebbie of prior history and the way it kind of works in the current meta. He has been a mid laner before. He has been a support laner before. Laner. That's the one I've gone for. On the other side, though, remember Viego was left open. Hoglet's Viego was pretty damn clean. It's locked in very quickly by AXIZ.
Absolutely. And they are also just going to pick Megamin's champion here. So DFM now get counter pick on Megamin with the complete champion Ocean. If you don't go for an Arya counter pick here, I don't know where they want to go because Arya literally has a champion Ocean here, ladies and gentlemen. And I could start naming every mid lane champion and I'd eventually get it right. I don't really know. Outside of setup for a Nidalee gank, I'm pretty comfy with almost any champion that Arya decides to pick here.
Could also just be an AD carry and leave it a little bit later. They'll go towards his Twisted Fate. Now, I remember you and me, Lexi. You and me, Lexi, were talking with Nymera and a few of our other analysts around the podcast, and the rest were saying, where was Arya's TF? This guy is so good on the champion.
Yeah, that Rascal
how you want to play the map. And that's suddenly more setup for Nidalee. Nidalee can turn up the TF, or the TF can turn up to the Nidalee, and you throw a gold card, and suddenly Nidalee has the easiest javelin toss of her life.
So that's where they want to go with it. They're going to play a minor poke comp. I hope AXIZ, yes, okay, good. AXIZ banning the Varus. I imagine now we're also going to see an Ezreal ban, because if they don't, DFM are going to pick the Ezreal. They're going to go full poke comp with this one, and probably play a very much just kind of front to back line poke composition. Something like a Leona or a Nautilus or something that can help set up, but not necessarily can be that front line, can be that tank. Even something like a Tarok wouldn't be crazy, honestly, in this kind of scenario, because you can just shield your front line and protect maybe the back line if anything catastrophic happens. Ezreal's the only champion that hasn't been banned out here. AXIZ, you've got one more, and we have heavily targeted these bot laners.
There's still Ashe available, and that's banned out. It leaves the Ezreal up, so that suggests. I wonder whether Udapon just locked straight in here. You've got
one of his best champions.
It's one of his absolute best champions. He has put in so much time on this champion. It's pretty goddamn clean, and instead, Honey insta-locks the Vayne. I love it.
I'm so excited to see how this has been going. He's been spamming this in solo queue, a first pick ever for him. He has been playing so much League of Legends in solo queue at the moment. His first ever Vayne pick, and she is the historic hyper carry champion.
Yeah.
We all compare we compare Honey's career and kind of the way that he's flourishing at the moment, the way that the team play around him, very much to RNG and Uzi. That's because guess what Uzi made famous? Vayne hyper carry. Honey, are you going to be Uzi, or are you going to be a hopeful yet disappointing solo queue player trying to make their best interpretation and impression of Uzi? We're going to find out. This is just setting up to be a banger of a series initialized. I'm loving this.
It really, really is. There's Gang's Alistair to round it out for some more engage. You've got setup everywhere for Steel. And I'm looking around at the side of AXIZ and going, okay, if you hit 2-3 items on an Azir, on a Vayne, on a Viego, it gets really tough in team fights. DFM have got ways to split the map, but they really need to get it going, because otherwise, this time, I think AXIZ probably have the scaling advantage. And I'm going to underline that one a couple times, Lexi.
They absolutely do have the scaling advantage, but I want to make one thing very clear. If any of these hyper carries outside of Viego, because Viego is just his own crazy thing in and of himself, if Megumin or Honey get picked out, it is very easy for them to go from 100 to 0 in a blink of an eye. They will be gone and forgotten, and the moment they lose one of those hyper carries, the team fight suddenly becomes way harder. Obviously, once Megumin hits like level 17, 18, 4-item Azir, we all know can actually like 5v1 if you play it crazy and you get those streamer shuffles, which Megumin has done in the past. Though it's been a while since he's had the crazy kind of performance. And honestly, if you want to ask me where I have to go back to see the crazy performance, we got to go back to Scouting Grounds, where he was doing hard 4-man, 4v1 kind of performance on Azir. Hasn't had it in the LJL since he's really debuted. He has moments, but this is the time, Megumin. This is the place, and it's against the best that the region has to offer.
It absolutely is. Okay, we've got the setup. Steel's
I'm so excited.
100% presence in Italy continues to be around. Arya's back on the Twisted Fate. If that mid jungle can get around the map and set things up, then it gets really scary. Honestly, even in the team fights, if DFM could keep people at range, you're looking at Nidalee, you're looking at Ezreal, hell, even Twisted Fate. That's a lot of range. Vayne's not exactly long range, but if you get those items, if you get the engages, man, Lexi, that AXIZ comp, Vayne, Azir, Viego, that's some juicy late game fighting.
Oh, 100%. And if one of the members of DFM gets scooped by a Shreema shuffle, it's over. They are gone to the dust. The Nether Realm is calling. The Death Realm is calling. I mean, Viego's probably calling in the Shadow Realm, but I mean, that's neither here nor there. I mean, I'm very excited to see how these two laning phases are going to play out. I do think early to mid game, DFM are heavily favored. Like AXIZ do not need to. They need to play as passive as possible. It's going to be very hard for them. Obviously, Nemo and Honey will always have kill pressure on to Utapon. If they can get him stunned up and they can get the Zenith Blade into the Iron Solaris, into the Vayne, then stun. If they can get the perfect CC chain, 100% they can kill Utapon. But that's the hardest champion to do that on is like really realistically an Ezreal, because he can just jump away. He has a free dash, and he's one of the few champions that has that. I'm just so excited to see how these laning phases go. Part of me is like, this could go really, really badly for AXIZ, but I love that they're trying and go, hey, let's just go late game. Let's go later than what DFM can go. We're a great team at team fighting, and we've seen that before initialize. So
Yeah.
Where are you going with this one?
I mean, it really does depend on me on that mid jungle. I mean, if that Nidalee, if that Twisted Fate can get things going, then DFM are in a fantastic position. On the other side, Honey on Vayne. The Des would say, oh, Honey couldn't find a hyper carry. That was a bit problematic. He's got one now. Hoglet as well, we said, look, you need to get things going early. He managed to disrupt some of the early attempts from DFM last game. Steel couldn't really get a lot done early on because Hoglet was there every single time. But this time he's on Viego. If he can get things going, and even Megamin's repping his jungler this time out, then maybe they've got some options. If they can stabilize, it's all good.
They absolutely do have to stabilize, but and that's going to be the big question for AXIZ in this match. Can they stabilize? I want to just mention a few important things. We haven't got an electrocute Azir. It's not unknown, but this is obviously going in a direction.
Just be common or lethal tempo. Oh my days, that AI bot.
Oh, this is the second time in a row. Obviously, it might be taking into account that this is DFM. It's not, obviously.
Sure. I don't actually know what goes into the stat bot.
So from my understanding, the stat bot just looks at raw power stats from solo queue and where these champions typically do well, and then kind of does an algorithm and goes, well, normally they do well at this point in time, or this is the point in line where the champion particularly does well, and this is where the common item spikes are. So basically what the AI bot is saying is DFM commonly is just always going to have more damage. The reason that I expect if that line went on beyond 35-40 minutes, AXIZ would just be overwhelmingly the favorites there. Because, let's be real, they've got Vape Nation. They've got a Viego, they've got an Azir, they've got a Vayne. We've mentioned this several times before, and that's how it goes. But Arya, you're taking huge damage from this rookie mid laner.
He is, but he turns it straight back around, walks past the soldiers, and trades it up as best he can. He's got himself a pick a card now, and red cards start flying at the wave, and got to see whether any of these junglers get anything crazy done early. They've started on opposite sides of the map, Nidalee pathing towards this top lane. No real surprise when you got the set there to set up, but of course you're into an Renekton who can certainly try and turn things around best they can. Ebby's going to start roaming in to see whether he can spot out this Viego level 2. There it is. I don't know whether he's going to be able to come in and steal. No! Oh my days, he nearly got a hold of that. Hoglet throws out the emote. Ebby was inches for getting that and making absolutely everything go wrong for Hoglet in the early game. That would have been a bit of a disaster steal. Fortunately for Hoglet, 5 HP is enough of a buffer to keep his blue buff alive.
Yeah, Steel though, looking for something. Doesn't land it, but Hoglet will have a look-see now. Just jump over the wall. It wouldn't have been catastrophic, obviously, if Ebby had stolen that, because obviously Viego isn't a champion that uses mana. So it's far more the cooldowns, the experience, and the gold that would have been far more effective, which obviously is still a pretty back-breaking thing. That's a lot of gold and experience and everything that you do lose out from not having that blue buff very early game. However, it does still go his way. Ebby gets to secure it, and we're back to just standard pathing around Ino and Ebby just trading kind of lane advantage. It swings one way, then goes the other, and that's just what top laners do. They noodle fight. Hoglet doing a pretty deep invade, just trying to get some information, and now we'll find out that obviously Steel did not do a complete clear. He kind of cheated out on some of his camps, so he'll probably have a good idea that he's probably going bot side. What's important is, guess where AXIZ are going? Where are AXIZ playing around this map? Well, the bot side just reset, so they're not going to be too worried about that. Steel coming back for his jungle, and Ebby's here. They did see the mist.
There is a Spectral Maw coming down. Ebby's going to go in, get stunned, but it's a big double face breaker. They went past him. Look for the Haymaker as well. There, is it going to come through? He needs to use it soon. It's going to get onto Inno. Flash away now. That'll be Steel flashing in. He's going to hop forward. It's a decent Cull the Meek, but it's still not enough. First blood goes the way of Ebby, and that invade from Hoglet gets punished so heavily. Flash is down, but it's the kill to DFM.
I'm trying to figure out if they wanted that to go onto Ebby or not. I do actually think it's beneficial for DFM to actually either get this Nidalee going, get that Nightbringer way earlier than... Oh my god, gang.
Finds a double headbutt pole, but there's not that much follow-up from Udapon. Now the turnaround starting to come through, flash in. That'll be the teleport now in from behind, though. They're going to try and get as much onto Udapon as they can. Double teleport from Arya and from Ebby coming through, looking for the gold car. They get it onto Honey. He's going to get face broken. He gets shut down. Now Nemo's in the backside. He needs to find his way out best he can. Mega Man is here as well, but that Azir needs to run. It's a double for Udapon. They went for the engage, and they get punished. 2-for-1 in favor of DFM.
But we have to give credit over to the side of AXIZ. If the double teleportation didn't come out, that would have been a huge net win and a 2v2 win that just adds to the bucket list of AXIZ with the amount of 2v2s they have won in the LJL. But let's look at this as we come back around. This looks so good for the side of AXIZ at the very beginning of this. That initial Q from Steel actually landing on Ino at the very start of this, and that looks very beneficial. Hoglet and Ino had the health advantage. Problem is, cooldowns had all been used. They couldn't actually capitalize on anything else, and they kind of actually went a bit too far ahead. This engage, though, was so good from the side of DFM, and the execution. Look at where Arya and Steel and Ebby currently are on the map. Arya just recalled and went straight back over. Ebby just went back into his lane and then just went, oh, well, we've already won this out. We've pushed up, which is important, so then we can make this play on the bot side, and it's a very clean 2-0 afterward, after losing a 2v2 engage, which they actually started. So, hey, net win for DFM, but it wasn't flawless.
No, but Honey and Nemo now down every single summoner, which is what they burned to get in to make that play, and that is scary. And of course, Arya now at level 6 can look to return and do that all over again. Initialize,
also look at the cooldowns for Utapon at the moment. They're just both
he's got all his.
Yeah.
And that is a big deal. That is what makes it keep things as it is. And got to keep our eyes around as well at things like, look, that's now 3 kills over to Fim. They're up about 1,000 gold at 6 minutes. We said they need to get things going early. They've managed to make it happen top. They've made it happen bot. Everybody, Mega Man is down there flash on the side of AXIZ. Everybody but the mid and bot lane of DFM are down there flash as well. It's been all action in this early game, Lexi.
Really is. And now the side of DFM and AXIZ both have the similar idea. They're like, hey, Ocean Dragon's up. We should really start stacking those. I remember. Good
flash from Arya to prevent the shuffle, but that now means they know where the jungle is, and they're going to look to try and get in here. As that's the engage onto Honey. He's going to get trampled in. It's a decent use of the condemn, but it's Honey who needs to escape best they can. Look at the damage. Watch for Steel. He's trying to find his way in. He looked for a read there to Udapon with the tumble. He gets the kill anyway, and Honey gets punished for picking the Vayne.
And this is the second time around, and guess what's up? That dragon that I mentioned earlier, Udapon still full health, and while you have got Hoglet, he is 6, and he is on a Viego. Alistair, gang, he's more than happy to hang around, because guess what also is coming up? We mentioned these TP. Oh, God, though, Ebby and Ino.
They're going to trade out best they can. Ino needs to be a little bit afraid. He's got himself a Dominus, but that's Ebby being really quick. There's going to be the attempt back in, and that'll be the gold card. Destiny's not quite enough. They still get it. Good lord. Good lord. He trusted himself on that one. I thought he lived.
No, that was the pot. That was actually the passive from his auto attack. Yeah.
Hoglet's been taken very low by this Ocean Drake as well. But with Nemo roaming up, Udapon just doesn't feel comfortable to try and stop this one. I think there's going to be a smite available, so that's fine. No true shot barrage from Udapon as yet, so that will be the dragon taken. Though I appreciate the attempt from Udapon to make Hoglet sweat a little bit there. Oh, Mega Man gets stopped as well. He needs to be a little afraid. That'll be the back stopped, but he does get to recall safely now.
And it's important because the side of AXIZ were able to get that dragon only because Arya went for that top lane play. Without using Destiny there, AXIZ can't know that that's ever going to be safe. And remember, they also get to just see where all the champions are on the map of the enemy team. So the moment they ever get worried that they're an advantage from AXIZ where they don't have vision on them, at any moment they can just press that. Arguably, DFM is probably the most dominant team if they have perfect information in the LJL.
Hoglet can steal this. He needs to be a little afraid, though, of the gold card. He's going to have to back away. That's the gold card coming through. He has got the Spectral Maw and get out. And with the eye open there, I wonder whether Hoglet with a Spectral Maw auto into the smite could have stolen that one away, but probably wisely backs off. And DFM do secure the Rift Herald, though I appreciate Hoglet just attempting there to poking his nose in.
Absolutely. And while he was poking his nose, it wasn't it was kind of looking at the objective, but he wasn't going to contest. And this is a good development for AXIZ, because they were one of those teams, remember, that would routinely watch objectives go down in the spring split, and you're getting so frustrated with this team because like you don't need to watch them do it. You as long as you have a good idea that they're doing it, you'll eventually know if that objective goes down or not. The game tells you guys. Don't worry. The game lets you know. But as they went into summer, they played so much better about going, well, we're just going to trade objectives. We're going to move around the map far more dynamically. If we're going to get an idea if you're doing it, we're going to walk off immediately and start trying to make a play somewhere else. And that is an improvement development in just the shot calling, the decision making. Someone like Honey having now somewhat fluent Japanese, and that was a big part of him coming into AXIZ. The first spring split, he was having to learn a huge amount, and we actually got to learn a bit about AXIZ when we talked with Corporal, remember, in that interview that I conducted with them, that they very much heavily incentivizes team morale, that the whole team needs to try and get onto the same page. And while it didn't work for Corporal while he was there, AXIZ this year have definitely shown that they found a concoction for success.
They absolutely have, but in this game, they are down nearly 3,000 gold at 10 minutes. That is not a good look. They've got a Herald to contend with as well. Stand with Utapon and Steel and Gang all around this bot lane. You can see what they're thinking. Vayne isn't the quickest wave clear, and there's already nearly 2 plates down here. Viego's going to start roaming over, and there is a bit of a shove in mid lane, so perhaps we could see a bit of a fight going on down here shortly.
And look at that, they're just clearing the vision out. Steel is playing very far up, and they know that Hoglet's here now because of the mist.
They do, and that's going to force Steel to retreat back away. Hoglet clears out that ward. Still got a bit of time left on this Herald, but that will do for now, as he's thinking about sending that command of his soldiers forwards and doesn't quite manage to stop Arya's recall. He'll teleport back in. Got himself a lot of very juicy components in there, but no completed mythic as yet. Pretty early getting one at this point, but with his assists and kills early on, maybe it would have been an option.
Yeah, well, both these mid laners decided to go for a very early boots completion. So that's commonly the decision that a lot of mid laners go. If they're snowballing their lane particularly hard, you'll just go for your completed mythic first. Whereas if you don't, and things are going a little bit slowly, sometimes that movement speed, just to play around the map, to dodge some skill shots, especially for Megaman, who is against a poke-heavy team, having upgraded boots means you could potentially fancy feet yourself around the map a bit more quickly. You might dodge a Nidalee Steer, you might dodge a random card from Arya's Q. These are all things that you kind of need to play around early game. You could be terrified that out of anywhere, Gang could just pop over the wall and you're like, well, I need to run a bit faster. It does mean that, as you mentioned, they aren't going to have those mythics. And we have seen some players in this series, actually not even this series so far, but in this match.
Oh, Honey. Yeah, they know everybody is going to teleport in. That's starting into the knock-up. He's going to try and get knocked down. They don't quite have enough damage, though. And now Gang's in trouble. He needs to try and find his way flashing away. He's getting shoved back under the tower. And that's surely Gang falling. The turnaround is going to be there for AXIZ. True Shot Barrage misses. And that means that DFM at least gets some plates topside, but that was some really important turnarounds. Double teleport, heal down, but they get the save onto their important AD carry. Alongside a kill team.
Oh my god, if he gets another one, it's not worth anymore for the side of AXIZ. It's not worth anymore. But the amount of gold that Ebby has just secured from that turret plating alone nullifies everything that AXIZ just did. The teleportations that were used, the amount of engage. Because think about it, AXIZ, DFM didn't use anything. They just rotated their players around. That spear not hitting is night and day different between, by the way, from Steel, if Honey lives or not.
Minions in the way.
The minion was in the way, but even that True Shot Barrage probably could have done it for Honey. So he was on the precipice. But guess what? Man's got upgraded boots. He knows exactly what to do. He needs to be quick. He needs to be smart. He needs to be fancy footsteps. He's got that, but it doesn't matter. Ebby got so much gold and guess what? There isn't a lot of experience gained for the side of AXIZ. So it's just net gain for Ebby and for DFM. They actually came out with a lead, even though so much was used, because Ebby's got TP. Destiny's on a way lower cooldown than the double TP from the side of AXIZ. So playing around these next Dragon fight and potentially even next Herald is a bit more awkward for AXIZ, and they might actually just have to seed this over.
They might, but at least it kept Honey alive, and he is your win condition. Of course, I don't know whether DFM actually have managed to use their Herald yet, so I don't think they got any plates out of the Herald.
No, it's still up.
Ebby managed to get a lot top, which is good news for him. Of course, last time he was left to the Wolves a little bit in that last game with the way AXIZ played around the top lane, I know. But no plates for AXIZ means that look at that gold. It is still around that 2,500 gold mark, or probably about 2,000 actually at this point.
Wait, did Herald not even get used and summoned?
I don't know whether they summoned it, possibly bot lane or mid lane. Maybe off
Someone
camera.
in the green room let us know that.
Yeah, if someone has seen whether the Herald got used, that would be great news. I honestly don't know. As Honey's going to pop the final hour and try and run in on Ebby. He's got a long way to go. Has got flash. May need to pop it. Here comes Hoglet as well. He's going to flash away, and he's going to use that Haymaker. Not quite enough. They're going to keep running. Honey is going to keep going forward, and he does get the kill. Just runs Ebby down. Hoglet takes a lot of damage in trade. Now Ina's going to get engaged on, and he might now be the trade. Here comes Arya. He's going to have a gold card. Does get it onto Ina. That's into the Everfrost, into the Javelin toss, and they get the kill. It's a 1-for-1 across the map.
Only that, but DFM are probably going to get first turret with this, or they already have first turret, so they already got it, so they're going to get 2 turrets. That's a huge amount of gold, and yeah, I've talked about second Rift Herald. It's nowhere near as big as a mutual objective as anything else on the map. It actually is net negative to send multiple members over there. You only really want to commit a jungler at most to that, unless another laner is going for a recall, because of the amount of gold that it actually will give you overall. Utapon, though, feeling rather confident, and now the side of DFM want to well and truly open this map up. They know they have an early and mid-game power spikes against this AXIZ composition, so guess what? You want to open up the map. You want to get objectives. You want to move around, and with a Twisted Fate, with a Destiny, oh, you can do that better than anybody else.
They absolutely can. Keep your eyes now on what DFM do at this point. A dragon for a dragon. Of course, AXIZ got that second Herald. Looking at the way this game is set up as well. The mid lane turret for AXIZ is probably the next point of call. But you've got to remember, while DFM are ahead, Honey's now picked up 3 kills. He was 1 and 2. Now he's picked up 2 on the back. He got to run down Ebby. And that is good news for AXIZ. If they can hold on, if they can make sure it doesn't get larger than 4,000 gold, which is a lot of gold at this point in the game, the win condition of this Vayne still kind of getting towards pretty scary points.
Yeah, but she's still a few items off. There's still a while to go until the terror of a Vayne really will start tearing up this rift. The issue is, it doesn't fully outscale this Ezreal. Ezreal can actually still just poke out a Vayne before the fight even starts. So can a Twisted Fate. So can one Nidalee Spear. AXIZ are going to have to play these team fights really critically. Nemo is going to have to be protecting the bodyguard like he's never done before. And we've seen Nemo do this superbly in the past. We need to see it again, though. Your time is here, Nemo. You're going to have to play this game flawlessly, and it's against some of the best in the region.
Nemo getting knocked back in now by Gang. That's a Solar Flare back. They're going to try and get some shuffle in. That's 1-for-1 right now. Gang now in trouble, but it's steal for the Leona. Megamin solo. Ebby's going to try and go forwards and pull Megamin back. Does so. One final auto does it for Ebby. Now they're going in onto Hoglet, who's looking for some resets.
Honey.
He'll get that one. Steals the body as they were trying to get in on him. Honey now in the backside getting a lot of damage. Unipod has to flash back over the wall. It's a double for Ebby, who's got himself a Haymaker. The True Shot barrage is huge, and now they continue to run through it. DFM crush the skirmish, even with Viego getting some resets.
Honey and tried his absolute best, but Utapon and Arya are too good, and actually this whole team fight is just comes back around to how good Ebby and Gang are at peeling, because AXIZ, you are so good. You are trying your absolute best, but look at what DFM do, and I want you to just highlight and watch Utapon and Arya, because this whole time, these two players never get tagged. It's Gang, it's Ebby, they're playing that front line. And look at it, it's only convenient for Hoglet this whole time to be like, oh, I'm just gonna get onto Gang, get onto Gang. The moment Gang goes down, it's like they trade places as fast as possible. Utapon jumps away and then he comes back over. And look at this, Ebby is just gonna keep tanking for so long. Gang had been doing it, and then the moment Gang perish, Ebby tags in, does it flawlessly. Arya and Utapon don't get touched, and they get carried for days. What a performance, DFM. Look at that damage graph.
Yeah, and you've got to call it out there. That was the most clutch body snatch I have seen from a Viego in some time. Gets himself out of the showstopper, because if he'd gone back in there, it would have been a really easy face breaker onto Honey. who's not running cleanse, he's running heal, and it's down, and they're going to keep going in. DFM just putting the foot onto the accelerator pedal. The solar flare is early. Nemo's gone, but but Honey's just gone. That's what you get for not having any summoners. The Vayne is done, the Leona is done, and the light is fading in this game right now for AXIZ.
And this was something we said could happen for AXIZ. They need to get 3-4 items. They want this game to go past the 30-minute mark, past where AI Bot San really predicted this game to go, because guess what? This is why DFM are specialized, are favored in the early and mid game, because if they can get the ball rolling, oh my, can it turn into a boulder going down a hill? And that's 3k gold. Yeah, it's so much.
7,000 gold at 19, nearly 20 minutes. That is 8k is considered unplayable at 20 minutes. They are that close to being there, and the problem is, until Honey gets a QSS, even after he gets a QSS, how much CC do DFM have? How many easy ways do they have to get on top of this Vayne? Yes, Vayne and Skylanes will run people down. It's like, you are really hoping you play this one well. Like, it's so hard.
It is.
I mean, he's got the talent. It's just going to be really hard.
And we've seen it countless times from Honey. The thing is, this is the ultimate challenge. This is why we have kind of poised this as the ultimate gauntlet for AXIZ. They can beat DFM. There's a chance they can go to Worlds and secure that ticket, but they need to beat DFM to even have an opportunity to go against Rascal Jester, the team that beat DFM on their historic win streak. Remember, DFM were on a 13-win streak before Rascal Jesters denied them the continuation of that. And that's including one win that they actually had in the very beginning of that Juggernaut match. DFM are angry, and it seems like they would like to rebuild the streak. Already one up, and this one's looking rather good for them at this moment in time with a huge gold advantage.
I know. He gets stunned, he gets rooted, he's going to potentially get knocked down. Here's Hoglet as well. They're going to try and find another option. That's a showstopper in. The Heartbreaker away, but Hoglet gets pulled back in, has to flash the Haymaker. Arya's still going. They get the gold card. They'll stun him as well. He goes down. Ebby was tanking the entire time, and it's 2 dead already. Just no way to respond. Megamin's TP isn't even off cooldown yet.
And I love the fact that you could even tell that whole time they were really trying to give it over to Steel. Like, they actually know where they want... Ooh. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Oh, Gang's going in. He's going to keep going. Unipon with the clutch. Arcane Shift. Megamin is dead. Honey is dead. And everybody on AXIZ is dead as well. Honey's own health bar is shrunk, and that wasn't the sequel to the movie he was looking for.
When it rains, it pours, ladies and gentlemen, and DFM, we mentioned they might have a bit of a score to settle with Rascal Jester, and sadly, AXIZ are in their way. DFM look unstoppable at the moment. Arya, 5-0-8. Utapon, 6-0-8. This is DFM's region. They have been the most dominant team this region has ever seen, with a super team assembled. AXIZ and 3 rookies, remember, initialized. 3 rookies are looking to upset them. Honey and Hoglet are trying their absolute best with everybody else, but the vision control that DFM has, especially due to this Destiny. Look at, I know, he's not been seen until just this exact moment. And then it's like, okay, what can he do? Well, nothing. They just have vision, and they already have vision of Hoglet, remember, because even though he's not on vision, well, that's what Destiny does. It's a very sad situation for the side of AXIZ there. They're just getting collapsed upon them. Well, yeah, you can't do anything about it. DFM are just really good at playing around vision control and objectives.
Okay, Lexi, we're casting the LJL Japanese League, because this replay is going to keep going. So I'll come up with this reference in a second or two, because Unipon baits that one masterfully, and it Gang with the headbutt flash. That's so sick.
Oh, and this is Hexaflash, remember? Like, this man is having to play out his mind to get engages like that for them. And, oh yeah, we come back from this replay. We know they were going to get that Baron, but afterwards it's just going from bad to worse for the side of AXIZ. DFM are knocking on their front door now at 23 minutes in. This isn't going to be the fastest game of the LJL.
No, Hoglet, he's trying to have to run away a little bit, does survive the engage, but he's forced away from the wards, and the 1-4 keeps going. The siege is here, and Arya apparently deciding to follow in Death Note's footsteps. He's got to Magize an inventory. Instead, we'll talk about the engages. Abby re-engages as the attempt comes through. Megan into the backside, gets stunned up and does not get the shuffle. He's dead. Now Honey into the backside, stunned as well. He's got himself an immortal shield, but 2 dead already. Make it 3. Azaria keeps running. The cards start flying, and this deck has been rigged from the beginning. You don't play high-stakes poker versus goddamn Twisted Fate. And Arya secures the last kill. They'll need this one. It's Aino against the world, and the world is mighty heavy. Detention FocusMe about to move to 2-0 in this series.
What a performance. Far more dominant. Doesn't break the record that AXIZ set in their match versus V3 Esports with the record of the fastest game. But it's 30 seconds after. I'm trying to get my camera, ladies and gentlemen, to come into focus, but it's so blurry because AXIZ, that's what they're seeing right now. It's all gray screens, it's all blurry, and you get moments of hope that you'll see me. But Detention FocusMe, too strong, and they take it.
They really do. And that was one of the risks of picking the Vayne there. Gets to play side lane once every other time it's team fights, and there's just a lot of bounce houses that Vayne really doesn't enjoy. She's a serious woman, and she isn't there to enjoy bouncy castles, and gets horribly punished for it. The Twisted Fate comes out. Ebby has a stronger laning phase, and what do you know? Just so much work they get to do in this game. They come out with the victory. They're 2-0 up, but it's not for us to break it down. We've got an analyst desk for that. So we'll be cutting to a break. When we come back, they'll tell you all about it. Stick around.
So hold our heads up high and beat the drum to what we love. Risk the follow, we have felt it all come crashing down from far above. Stars are rising, countless worlds colliding. Only one will take it all. Can we bring to fall the giant?
Ding, ding, ding. The church bells are a-ringing right now, and Arya and the rest of Detention, they are here, and their dominance is singing aloud. 2-0 up after our second game, and what was a lot more one-sided. It felt like AXIZ avoided going for that early game comp, and it seems like they paid the price in this one. Middle, you picked them to win this series. You didn't say the order. I think we might be seeing a reverse sweep now, no?
Yeah, I think that's where I'm going to be throwing my chips, hedging my bets. But like you touched on there, AXIZ in game one, early game was actually pretty good, and we were wondering, sort of in the break when we were off camera, off broadcast when we were seeing the drafts coming through, whether that was because they had a strong early game composition, or whether because I'm ignoring you right now, Alex. It's not happening. You're not there. Or whether it was because they were actually playing the early game strongly. Turns out, may have been the former. They go for scaling with the Azir and the Vayne in their lanes, and then DFM kind of brutalized them in the early game a little bit.
That's almost putting it mildly, it felt like, because Detonation, with every single one of their plays, felt like they could do no wrong. Of course, the big catalyst being that team fight that got flipped back around, which happened in the bot lane. I'm going to throw it to Namira real quick, because it felt like last game we saw team fights go back and forth, but this time around, Detonation, every single one of them was just in favor of the red side.
It was, and the one that we're going to choose is actually the one which got closest. So as you can see, we've got ourselves a bit of a gold lead here for DFM, a couple of thousand gold in their pockets. However, you still have first item built up on Vayne. That's very important. You have both summoners on Vayne too. So you're looking at this hyper carry, which does have 3 kills, all of them from AXIZ, starting to ramp up. This starts, though, when you've got, of course, ultimates available for Arya to close distance, and Gang, who can face check with absolute impunity. Nemo gets picked off first, walks in for a pulverize, gets shunted back into the team. Of course, Steel uses all of this. And what I want you to watch now is not this gold card as the play starts going on. Watch this now. You see this? That's a gold card. You see this? This is a Vayne which cannot walk basically beyond this point. And this is what I really love about how Arya plays this team fight in particular. It turns out he's pretty good at League of Legends. He just holds it. Honey sits there, holds it, cannot walk up. As soon as they do, of course, you do get that kill on Gang, and this is where things get very, very spicy, because Hoglick starts getting resets. But the fact is, you're the most fed, and the only character on your team that can do damage for AXIZ isn't allowed to team fight for half of the confrontation, and a lot of that's just through holding a gold card.
Yeah, it was holding that gold card, and I also want to give some credit as well to the Emperor's Divide, which, well, it looked like it was blocking things away, but actually in reality, you know, a Divide could have stepped forward. No, it was all the gold card as we saw that play, and that looked to be the fight that was going to go AXIZ's way. They were the team that found that pick, and again, I don't mean to keep harping on you, Middlecop, but you were the one. You were the chosen one to take this team to win, and you're talking about hedging your bets. You're talking about backing out. Yeah, let's bring these predictions back up again, because I really want to emphasize that point. I'm looking for you right now. You need to give me that argument, because we're seeing AXIZ lose with that early game. We're seeing them struggle with that middle and late game. They've got to do something to bring it back right now, right?
Well, I mean, okay, so I think the Vayne pick was actually good here. You give something to Megaman that gets him a little bit more agency in the mid lane. Obviously, it was a good Emperor's Divide in that last team fight, but didn't really end up panning out for AXIZ if DFM were just able to take it. I think that a lot of this game stemmed from a couple of early mistakes from AXIZ that haven't really characterized them throughout the playoffs. We saw the top lane, I know, flashing forward in a bit of a weird angle, or dashing forward, that meant that Ebby could get the double face breaker, landing a stun onto Hoglet. Then also in this fight could have been played a little bit cleaner. Generally, I'm happy with what AXIZ are doing. But the problem is, if you make a couple of mistakes against DFM, this is what happens, and it kind of just looks a little bit unfair. Honestly, I'd love to see Honey on one of his more premier picks of the Aphelios or the Jinx. Don't think that's going to happen in game 2. But yeah, I think the name of the game now for AXIZ is cleaning up your early game. Maybe you've got some other more traditional hyper carry that Honey can play, like something like a Twitch. Whilst it's not particularly meta, it's one of these big team fight picks that can really pop off. But aside from that, it looks pretty bleak for the Narwhals right now.
Yeah, it is not looking too great for them, and I do feel one of the big reasons why, and the last thing I want to touch on before we go to this break, has been some of that mid lane. I think one statistic that came up towards the end of the game that had us all kind of turning our heads was Arya with a 3K plus gold lead. So, Namira, I'm going to go back to you. How important has Arya been in these team comps so far to Detonation? And is this essentially the world's form Arya potentially? Maybe going 1 or 2 steps ahead right now, but is this sort of that performance that we've been waiting to see, and now is he finally coming through in the clutch?
In a lot of ways, yes. And I think the big thing for me is that DFM, when they lost to Rascal Justice, had 1 game of Rise, and then they kind of just threw it to the wayside for the rest of it. Now, playing the Rise in game 1, playing the Twisted Fate in game 2, gives them so many mid-game options, where DFM have typically fallen down in their skirmishes. If they have the tools where the champion just goes, you are meant to play the map in a 1-3-1 setting, in a split setting, Well, of course, it's much easier to kind of change your mindset towards that. DFM going towards 2 picks, which Arya can start getting really involved in calling the shots on, is so very important for this team. And I think it's a good sign, particularly when AXIZ can't find their comfort champions to achieve their own playstyle.
Yeah, it has been difficult for AXIZ to look comfortable pretty much at any stage so far of this series, except for maybe the first 10 minutes of game number 1. But fortunately for them, and fortunately for everyone watching along as well, they still get at least one more chance. They're going to be playing for the reverse sweep, and I know one person here believes, even though he's saying he might not anymore. The question is, how many of you out there believe as well? Well, you are going to have to wait a little bit before we get into that. Throwing it
Wolves.
Absolutely. We're going to be throwing it to a quick break, though, while we get that chant up and running. Maybe if they change their logo to a shark, they'll have a better chance. Either way, though, going to the break. When we come back, we'll be with a bit more League of Legends.
So hold our heads up high and beat the drum to what we love. Risk the follow, we have felt it all come crashing down from far above. Stars are rising, countless worlds colliding, only one will take it all. Can we bring to fall the giants? Can we make the fight